We looking good?
You're looking great.
At
Good,
the
good.
woman's touch, we're good.
Cool.
All
What's up, dude? What's going on?
right, Duffy, let's do this. I'm ready when you are, Leo. We're recording. We're good to go. All right. Welcome to another episode of Knowledge to Currency, where knowledge is power and currency is king. I'm your host, Senior Reporter, and today we have the guest Duffy on the show. Welcome to the show today.
Thanks, brother. It's good to chop it up. I feel like we always see each other at events, but we never actually get to talk. So
Yeah, no, the beauty about the podcast is you actually get to know people on another level that you normally don't get to know. So I suggest a lot of people should start their own podcast because you actually, it's almost like a net to bring more opportunities towards you because you get to really know the person and how they vibe and stuff like that. Let the conversations kind of take over, and then the opportunities in business kind of happen. A lot of people try to do it opposite where they're just saying, hey, I do this, we should do it together. And I don't know how hard you've worked to make your business happen, but I'm sure you worked hard. You don't just want to give that opportunity to someone you don't know. So then they get kind of guarded and things like that. So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, people like Rich Summers, he says that he owes almost 100% of his success in the last couple of years to just these, long form content platforms, the podcast. He said that, he was hopping on 10 to 15 calls just to raise $100,000. But now that he's got 2 years of podcasts, people just spend hours at the gym, driving in their car, whatever, just listening to him. And it builds this different level of trust that I feel like, podcasts, they gain that other platforms can't. And now he just has people wiring him $250,000 without even a phone call. And it's pretty amazing. So
I think no matter what kind of industry you're in, I really believe if you kind of open up and just kind of let people look under the hood, saying, even if you're a butcher and you say, these are the things it takes for me to do it, and these are the people I come in contact, it's more humanizes you instead of just being transactional,
Exactly, yeah. And this day and age of just brands and then content and, Instagram, there's so much fake stuff out there, and I feel like it's got almost like a benefit and a detriment.
Yeah.
I think the benefit is obvious, but the detriment is that if you don't look like X, Y, and Z, and you're not an immediate overnight success, you're almost viewed as a failure. So I feel like the opportunity to record hours and hours of a podcast and tell your story and get people to know the intimate details of your life just, leverages that relationship, that trust that you can build, which, in the end of the day, just positively affects your business. So
Absolutely. So let's let our audience know some stuff about you, Duffy. Now you were a traveling nurse during the pandemic. Are you still doing that now?
Correct. I actually just joined a travel contract up in Los Angeles about 5 weeks ago.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that this is one of my last, but it's kind of funny. So, I'm a nurse now transitioning as an entrepreneur into real estate, but as much as I want that to happen overnight, it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I have to come to terms with reality and, expectations. And if I can still utilize my nursing degree to get me to my goal faster, it's what I have to do right now. So I am working up in Los Angeles. I'm actually driving up there tomorrow morning about 4:30 a.m. So
Let's go.
yeah, let's go. Just the hustle, man. But, now is the time to hustle. Got my beautiful girlfriend here today, and we have a lot of serious, plans together. And this is, you got to do what moves the needle forward. And, where I want to be in 5 years, continuing to do what I'm doing now, these travel nursing assignments is going to help me get there quicker.
What I love when I talk to you, I can feel the passion and your purpose. Where do you think that comes from?
Ooh, that's a good question. So, my parents are on the East Coast. They're very traditional. My dad is, kind of a quiet, I wouldn't say nerdy. I love my dad to death, but he's an old school doctor.
Mm-hmm.
My mom is more the, emotionally intelligent, kind of person. She's the more outgoing spirit. But in terms of a drive to really, start on an entrepreneurial journey, I don't know where I got that from, but since I can remember, I've always been very resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to get involved in a lot of, different things throughout my life that brought me short-term and long-term success. So, it's just something about the drive. And I feel like being around enthusiasm is what attracts me. And what better world of enthusiasm than entrepreneurs? You know,
Right.
nobody hates their job. They love the kill.
Right.
They love this masochistic desire to, you know, embark on this journey. There's this known cost for an unknown payoff, and they don't know if the juice is actually going to be worth the squeeze at the end of the day, but they love the pain in between. They love the process, and I'm slowly learning that that is the only way through.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no, what's the quote I say almost every show now? You can know the path, but to walk the path is two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the hardest part is walking the path. So working out, entrepreneurship, relationship, all those different things, they're going to be ups and downs, and you got to stick to the path, like keep going. So then what made you become a traveling nurse?
It's a great question. So I feel like, you know, I've got really extreme views on college education, right?
Sure.
So we've got this system in place now where teachers are still teaching things to kids that they know won't help them in the real world, right?
Yeah.
So when you're 18 years old, you're sat down and you said, okay, what do you want to do for the rest of your life, right? What more of an inappropriate question to ask an 18-year-old with no life experiences?
Right.
Sign here. Here's $200,000 in 4 years of your time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I was 18, I knew I didn't know anything else other than healthcare. You know, my mom's a nurse, my dad's a doctor, so like, what would I do in business? What does that look like? I had no guidance.
Right.
So I kind of stumbled into nursing. I never wanted to be a bedside nurse. There's many different types of nursing. I wanted to be a nurse anesthetist,
Okay.
essentially a nurse that administers anesthesia. But it's funny because what's the quote? Like, man makes a plan and God laughs.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
I feel like every single time that I've ever had a plan in my life, you know, some metric of time had passed and, you know, your goal changes, but you know, that's life in general.
Mm-hmm.
So I stumbled into nursing, and the longer I stayed in this industry, in this career, I've really realized how not sustainable it is. And I was recently listening to a podcast, and they said you have to look at your career as, you know, the future of it. Is it going to be a benefit or a burden?
Okay.
And my experience in healthcare, you know, healthcare aside, just the actual physicality of the job, there are nurses that spend a career working night shift.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting, you know, this post-pandemic, you know, kind of importance on mental health, you know, physical health. There's all these studies are coming out now about stress, and, you know, what higher stress job than bedside nursing. So a nurse that spends a career in working nights, for example, on average will die 15 years earlier than someone who works day shift.
Wow.
So you quite literally give your life for this career.
Right. So I don't know if you know, but my aunt, she was at Torrey Pines. She ended up passing away from colon cancer. But the nurses, because we were there all the time, and at the time it was kind of after COVID, so we could see like the tape on the doors and stuff from where they were like had people quarantined and everything, and they were talking about how stressed they were from working during COVID, and then they didn't have enough staffing. So the one nurse that we had, she was from Philly, so she had came to San Diego to work at that hospital, and normally they only let you visit one person at a time, but because me and my uncle were there and she was going through all this, they would let us stay there. So literally, as soon as they opened in the morning, we would stay and we switch shifts. Like one of us would go get food or whatever she felt she wanted to eat, because she wasn't a fan of the hospital food. And I think with the treatment she was given, the food didn't taste right anyway. So I'd go out and get whatever she wanted to eat. Then my uncle and I would wait. If she had to use the restroom, we'd help her use the restroom. But what I noticed is the nurses, they had to take care of maybe 8 patients at once. So let's say 2 people need to use the restroom at once. She can't be at both beds, and she had to rotate. So she loved us because we'd help her take care of my aunt. But I commend you. I mean, obviously, that's not what you do specifically, but anyone in that field, I commend them because it's important.
Oh no, that's what I do as
Right.
well. So
okay.
I've worked there's this hierarchy of nursing, right? So it's in terms of acuity, that's a fancy word for how sick is this patient, right?
Okay.
So you have low acuity patients and kind of low acuity nurses, right? So a med surg floor, medical surgical, that's the lowest acuity in the hospital. So those nurses will have, in California, the max state ratio is 6 patients.
Okay.
In Philadelphia, that's 8. How can you help 8 people that all have to get medications within a hour and a half time frame, have to use the restroom, you have to do your assessments.
Yeah.
It creates a work environment that is just, you're always walking on eggshells. You're always against the clock. And to balance these things, you have to be really good at, like, your skills. So I never started out in medical surgical nursing. I do sometimes get floated to floors like that, but I started in intensive care. So in ICU nursing, there's basically 4 different aspects of it. There's medical, there's surgical, there's trauma, and then there's neurological, so injuries of the brain. And those patients have such a high acuity that the state ratio max is only 2 patients per 1 nurse. And you are running around, but if you've got 8 patients who are barely sick or 2 patients that are extremely sick, nursing in general is just a red line, 100 miles an hour standing still career. And it definitely adds up on people.
Sure.
So we appreciate family like you that always come in. That's always an added bonus.
Yeah, because I felt bad for her because someone called in. She had to stay the whole day. And she was like, yeah, I'm sorry, no one can come in. And I don't want my patient, because she looked at the patients like her family. So it was good to see, like, being in the hospital for that long of time, you saw people that were really in it to help people, some people that were there for a check, and some people that just kind of checked out. They didn't really care. They're just there. So I could see what you're saying with that. So when did you come to the conclusion, like, all right, I'm in this. This ain't it. I got to do something different. Like, let's just change this up.
Oh, that's a great question. So I don't know. To be honest with you, it would have happened a lot sooner than it actually did if it had not been for COVID.
Okay.
So like every 6 months, like clockwork, I'd be at work and something would happen and I'd have this like panic attack almost. And I'd be like, wow, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? Like, I know this is not it. So nursing comes with a lot of challenges. The job itself is difficult enough, but there's this negative culture associated with nursing where even in school they taught us, nurses eat their young. So there's this really negative, culture, this unit culture, this bullying that goes on. And I saw that day one of working in a hospital in Philly. So between the physicality of the job itself and then your peers, it just really makes you ask yourself, am I going to do this for the rest of my life?
Right.
So when I had left Philadelphia, I started exploring other options. And again, totally scared shitless. I just spent all this time, all this money trying to learn this job. And I got the piece of paper that says I can do it. But what if this is not it for me? So I decided to, for lack of better words, just kind of fuck off and travel to Southeast Asia. And I felt 2 months there was going to give me the clarity that I needed to make a decision of what the direction of the rest of my life was going to be.
Okay.
So when I was there, I had actually flown about 2 days just to land in Southeast Asia for 3 days. COVID hits, right? So perfect timing, right? So this whole 2-month period where it's just a reset, and I was leaving Philadelphia, I was coming out of a bad relationship. This was my time to really ask myself what I want to do. And 5 days later, I was sent back to the United States, and I started working in Manhattan, I think a week later.
Oh, wow.
So this whole time that I'm thinking, how do I get out of nursing? I was kind of, pulled back in.
Right.
What's that? You watch The Sopranos. It's like every time I try to leave, they pull me back in.
Right.
So, it was this unprecedented time in, U.S. history and global history. We don't know if we're going to die. What is this disease, right? All we know is it's just rapidly affecting somewhat, unhealthy people.
Right.
So I was sent to New York City. I was offered a contract for X. It was the most amount of money I'd ever been offered my whole career.
Wow.
And it wasn't just the money that kept me there. It was, more or less I have this very niche set of skills. I can operate a ventilator. I can operate life support drugs. I know how to take care of these, sick, septic, pulmonary failing patients. So I felt like I had a just moral obligation to go.
Right.
So my parents dropped me off in New York City. I had worked for about 3 months, and then I had the opportunity to come to San Diego. So here's me trying to get out of nursing. COVID hits, and now I'm roped back in for the next 3 years just based off the paycheck was really what kept me in here.
Right.
So taking it all back now to answer your question, at what point did I say this isn't for me anymore? It's when COVID ended. So
okay.
now I see San Diego. I'm from Philly, two very different places.
Yeah.
I understand that I'm never going to leave this place. I will go homeless before I return to the East Coast. But that being said, I have to afford to live here, right?
Right.
So making, after the COVID contracts, kind of dissolved and fizzled out, how do I make it here? How do I become successful in Southern California on a bedside nurse's salary?
Sure.
It's basically paycheck to paycheck.
Right. So then what were some things that you start to look at to get in a vehicle to increase your income?
It's great great question, because, it's the tried and true cliche of, you're motivated by two things, either pleasure or pain, right? So for those 3 years, 2.5 that I was in San Diego, 3 years total during the pandemic, I had no reason to change. I was making 3 to 4 times my salary. I had a phenomenal group of friends in San Diego. I had met a girl, fall in love, started dating. I had no reason to change, right?
Right.
On paper, I was, as what you would define successful, right?
Nice.
I was making money. I was a nurse. I'm helping people. But in those 3 years, there was absolutely zero growth personally and professionally within myself.
Okay.
I had been very stagnant and I had no reason to change. So as COVID started to end, it's coincidentally enough, the night I decided to get into real estate was one of the best nights of my life and one of the worst nights of my life.
Let's talk about it.
It's a funny story. I got to leave out some details, but
Okay, what was the worst part? Let's start with the worst and then go to the high, the best.
I got invited out to dinner with a bunch of other travel nurses, right? This place in OB, LaDonia. We get there and someone runs into somebody else that they know. And we put our tables together. So met all these, these new guys. They're young, they're cool. They all work in real estate. So one guy, I'm really into watches. He had this watch that, we had the same watch essentially. So started striking up a conversation, and he told me that he worked in commercial real estate, and he was basically homeless when he was my age, working at a fast food, I don't think fast food, I think like chain food restaurant.
Okay.
And living out his car. And then, fast forward 6 years later, he's making, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month selling commercial real estate. So I said, that sounds pretty interesting.
Right.
So the girls had left, my coworkers, and the guys were like, hey, come out, hang out with us. We're having a party tonight at our place, actually in Little Italy.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's by miles.
Exactly, right? So I go to this after party with them, drinking alcohol the whole night, doing a lot of things that I shouldn't be doing. Ended up, kind of on a little bit of a bender for about a day and a half. And one of these guys that I had met there, he's like, well, what's your goal? And I said, my goal was always just to be able to afford $1 million house here, rent it out, move to Bali, have my life. I'm doing whatever there, come back in 10 years, double my investment. That's all the money that I need to be happy in life, right? And he said, no, you got to go into multifamily. You got to get a duplex. You got to get an apartment. You had a house hack. And I'm like, what are these? What is this guy talking about, right?
Okay.
So we had exchanged numbers. We had left later that morning. I think this is like almost noon the next day. I haven't been in bed yet. And I'm FaceTiming my friends. I'm telling them all about, these guys I met, this party I just left. And I'm walking on the OB pier as I'm FaceTiming my friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going, foot in front of foot, completely dangerous. All I remember next is falling. So
What?
I'd fallen off the OB pier. It's the second time I'd ended up in the hospital due to, alcohol. But bringing it back to, the 3 years of success on paper in San Diego, all I really did was just, did some poor life habits. I was drinking a lot. I was hanging out with, people that weren't helping me grow. They were actually, kind of preventing me from doing that. But I had fallen. I had broken my back, ended up in the hospital.
Whoa.
I had lost my job. That was, paying me $4,500 a week. To me, that was, the most money I've ever seen, and I really had the time to ask myself, back to where's the direction of my life going to be?
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I decided to stop drinking, stop doing everything else. I, got involved in, some coaching. I started to reach out to other people and do some networking events. And at that point, that's when I chose real estate as my next vehicle.
Wow. So it took you breaking your back to get you to be more focused.
when you work in trauma ICU and you take care of a quadriplegic, you understand the concept of, you know, how valuable your limbs are, you know. And if I put myself in this dangerous situation for the second time in my life, ending up in the hospital, you know, I'm just, what's next? Is there going to be a third time? So that light bulb moment was the best night and the worst night of my life, but also the most important thing that has happened to me in the last, you know, 24 months in terms of my own personal growth and development. You know Jarvis Leverson?
Yeah.
So
More
he
than
was
a hero.
Exactly. He's my business coach for a while, but you know,
beautiful.
We had similar life experiences that brought us to this light bulb moment, and you know, thank God it happened.
Man, I didn't expect that part of the story. I thought something funny was gonna happen, but no, that's serious stuff.
Yeah. So I have this now new network of these guys that are, you know, all in real estate. They say, come with us, like, you know, just, you know, be a fly on the wall, you know, follow my day to day. And, you know, then I'd lost my friends, lost my job. I'm just kind of in my studio by myself in OB, and I have been dating my girlfriend at the time, but she is living in Hawaii. So it was the time I needed alone to really, you know, redefine myself. And I know that real estate is going to be the vehicle that I'm going to travel in for the rest of my life. And it's just so much enthusiasm and so many people in this industry that just want to reach out and help. And I look at nursing, and everyone is kind of just, you know, looks at, you know, work as kind of like a prison sentence. I'm working for this pension. Oh, I only have 17 years left. I only have 5 years left, 35 years left. And in real estate, everyone's just so enthusiastic. They're young, they're healthy, they're in shape. They, you know, they care a lot more than just, you know, the surface level stuff. So.
I mean, I think it's a sad thing about depending on the generation, how people believe life should be. And I don't know about for you, but for me, some of my dreams are so big that when I tell them to people, it doesn't come over well. They like look at me like I'm Kanye West or something.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Because you're like, nah, you could do this. Like, these corporations do this, and they're like, well, you're not that corporation. I'm like, but that corporation started with somebody that had an idea like you and me. Mm-hmm. What makes them different than us? Like, Nike isn't even that old, and it's a Fortune 50 company. But when that Phil Knight was originally trying to get people to wear his shoes, he went to Magic Johnson. He offered him, like, I think they said the stock that he offered him in Nike, he'd be be worth $2 billion now. Mm-hmm. And Magic Johnson went with Converse, and you know he still made money, but it wasn't what. And I think Nike ended up buying Converse later. Like, I think when they signed Dwayne Wade, they bought Converse, and he was supposed to like roll out the shoe. But that's a whole nother thing. But my point is, it's unfortunate who do you go to for mentorship when you have ideas and you have dreams, and then your immediate circle, they're not able to even think about what you're thinking about because you're the biggest thinker in that room. So it's good that you said, you know what, I'm going to start talking to other people, maybe get some coaching myself, sit and focus. Like, I think that's really the biggest problem people have, is just focus, and not that they're not smart enough or whatever. They just don't focus on something long enough to get through that pain to get to the success. Mm-hmm. So that's dope that you did that. So now you're going on this real estate path. What was the first thing you bought?
Oh my God. I bought the coolest villa you could ever imagine in Bali, Indonesia.
Okay. You've been out of the country for your first purchase. Okay.
Oh yeah. Because I know everything. I'm Ian Duffy, and you know, brand new to real estate, but I'm smarter than everybody else. And out of all the financial decisions that I could have made, I chose to make the absolute worst one. My first investment into real estate was a villa in Bali, Indonesia, and I essentially just lost $35,000.
Dang, so what happened? Break it down.
So we're on vacation, and I was thinking to myself, you know, this island, you know, I'm going to die on this island. It's really, you know, just a place that's magical to me, and what better to have a business there that eventually I can, you know, retire in, you know. Okay. I can have a short-term rental. I start looking at, you know, AirDNA. That's the analytical data metrics that you use to kind of see how a short-term rental will perform. And for reference, on planet Earth, Bali, Indonesia is the only A+ rating. It is the hottest place for a short-term rental Airbnb.
Okay.
So we're on vacation. I called this guy through an acquaintance of mine who lives on the island, and he goes, "Oh yeah, my friend's developing, you know, some properties." And how much are they? They were X. I was like, I can't afford that, but come check them out anyway. So we go there and immediately just fall in love. You know, we met this guy, seemed like a real straight shooter. Everything was on kind of handshakes and no contracts, which in hindsight, you know, just means someone's going to rob you. But again, I know everything. So we had made this decision to bend over backwards to make this work. And with the help of my friend, she gave me 15% of the investment. We had chose to purchase this villa, and it was going to be built in 12 months. So what happens in Bali is expats go there and they buy land. They work with architects and they sell you a rendering. You get an early bird price, right? Which might be $50,000, $100,000 cheaper. So they essentially sell the early bird. They use your capital to finance the entire build.
Mm-hmm.
So this developer was building 4 villas. He was going to use my installments to finance the construction of 4 villas, right? So you get 3 for free, basically.
Nice.
We had some contract issues and delays. This was from a developer who I think really overestimated his ability to do this on his first try.
Sure.
He had other real estate, I say projects, but I don't know, what do you define as, project? But essentially, I think the most dangerous person to do business with is someone that says, I know, when they clearly do not know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had trusted this individual. I was promised a contract on this date. I did not get it on this date. A lot of time passed in between. My friend, who is the co-investor with me, says, I don't like this. I'm backing out. So my deposit was essentially just in limbo. So bring it back. We were just on the island a week ago. I tried to meet up with him, try to discuss possibilities, because you got to make a shitty situation at least as find the silver lining.
Yeah, of course.
So try to come up with a situation that both parties feel like they win. And unfortunately, I think I'm gonna just lose my entire deposit. But at the end of the day, in a relative sense, $35,000 is a huge sum of money to a lot of people. But in absolute sense of the course of my entire life, that's just not going to affect me. So I've been buying down ignorance, as I like to tell people.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned, my first investment ever. So you can either buy down ignorance with money or time.
Right.
So with time, it's the experience, but to get there even quicker, you have to pay somebody else to, show you these things.
Right.
So knowing what I know now in paid mentorships, focus on real estate investing, I made every wrong move investing in Bali, Indonesia. But I've been buying down my ignorance for a long time.
Sure.
I spent $100,000 on an undergraduate degree that I don't use. And what do I have to show for it? Nothing.
Right.
So if I spent lost $35,000 to learn this lesson that is monumental in this new career that I'm on, it's the best money I could have ever spent.
True. So now that you've gone through this experience, what would you done differently if that opportunity comes again?
It's what I tell everybody. No matter what you're doing in life, shake as many hands as possible.
Okay.
I think you need to connect with as many people in that space. You need to see what they're doing, their failures, their successes, and you need to make the best decision with the information in hand. So I would tell anybody, and I would tell myself, 15 months ago, talk to more people. What are they thinking about this? But in Indonesia, there's zero leverage. If, the villa is $500,000, you owe $500,000 to get the keys. Here in the United States, I bought a $900,000 house in January for $17,000 out of pocket. So learning concepts of leverage. And, once I really, really wrapped my head around that, I just, I said, this is well worth $35,000 because I know that I will never make this mistake again.
Right. So that's fantastic. So you were in Bali. What's some other places that you travel that you really enjoyed besides Bali?
I was really fortunate enough to, I always had side hustles going on in college, and I always had my hand at everybody else, all these other ventures. And I had traveled my entire 20s. I've been all over Europe, Southeast Asia. And, they say like your 20s are your selfish years.
Yeah.
It's a time to kind of understand who you are. And, traveling is the biggest killer of ignorance, between cultures, between languages. And I feel like I am the person I am today because I had traveled so much. I think my list is 28 or 29 countries, something like that.
That's pretty awesome.
But on my deathbed, people can look at, okay, you traveled and, basically, what do you do for your 20s? You could either work hard or play hard. I played hard.
Right.
So you can look back and say, well, now I'm playing catch up in my 30s. But on my deathbed, I'm going to look back at my 20s as the best investment that I ever made.
Nice.
Because the rarest commodity we have in life is time. And what better time to have the money to afford to travel and to learn all these, different things, have these experiences. So I'm very fortunate to be able to do that in my 20s.
So would you recommend someone young get a passport and go see parts of the world in their 20s?
It's so weird because American culture is, if you don't go to college directly after high school, you're kind of
behind, or
you look at it almost like a failure, like you're some derelict. What's going on, what's wrong with you? You don't know the direction of your life. But in other cultures, like European culture, they have the gap year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as you turn 18, right after high school or primary school, whatever you want to call it, your parents encourage you to get a passport and to travel the world for a whole year.
Right.
So now that you come back with these life experiences as a 19-year-old instead of an 18-year-old with no life experiences, and now you have to make these big decisions like, what do you want to study for the rest of your life? What kind of career do you want to pursue? So I would obviously, my kids, the biggest thing that I can give them is the option to have free thinking, free thought, to challenge everything, to suck it all in. As Gary Vee says, you need to go out and you need to just taste as many things as possible. So I feel like people who have that year to do that have a greater benefit over someone who doesn't.
And I feel like the more you travel around, even just in the United States, like you said, Philly versus California, when because I moved out here from Tampa, Florida, to see everyone's point of view of what they think of someplace until you live there. And like my friends, they live in Tampa. My friend's wife is a forensic CPA. So he's like, I'll never divorce my wife because if I do, I'm financially like destroying myself, because she knows all the divorce attorneys in the city. They all like go to her and she can find money. Like there's no hiding the money.
If you didn't report $5, she'll find it.
Yeah, she'll find the money. But her firm, they sold to a company in San Diego, but they still want her to run the firm in Tampa. And then once a year, they would come to San Diego. So he was like, yeah, we're going to come out there. We all went to dinner and everything. And I walked them through Little Italy. We had dinner. And just when they got here and they walked around and they're like, everything we thought is wrong. Like, they're like, how could you live there? It's so expensive. Like before I moved, then when I took them to Torrey Pines and we went on a hike, and like, yeah, so how much is real estate out here? I'm like, exactly. Oh, now you guys want to buy out here? They're like, there's no humidity, there's no bugs, the weather is so awesome, and they're just going on. And I was like, oh, no, go back to Tampa. We don't need any more people from Florida here. And they're laughing, but but if they would never came here, they wouldn't have that perspective. So I agree. I think more people should travel. More people should see the fortunate and the unfortunate things that you see, and then you'll start to look at the world way different.
Yeah, that's a great point. And to just have that self-awareness and that perspective, you can't buy that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, you just gave an example of traveling, right?
Right.
And expectations. But, you look at when you're a kid and you're raised by your parents, their expectations of their reality of what your life should be through their lens, not your own.
Right.
So I think it all boils down to definitions, like what do you define as a happy life? What do you define as a successful life? To my dad, that would have been an Ivy League school, go to medical school, make a salary that was 3 to 4 times the average. Yeah. But at the end of the day, he's almost 70 years old. He's been a physician for 35 plus years. I call him up. I say, hey, Dad, what's going on? Every day's Monday. He hates his job.
Right.
He's having this identity crisis where he doesn't know what he will do when he does retire. They see it a lot with like Olympic athletes. You spend your whole life doing this one thing, and the day that it's over, you say, who am I? What purpose do I serve?
Purpose, yeah.
Exactly. So I think bringing it back to the expectations and definitions of what leading a successful and happy life looks like, those are my parents. To me, it's, how can I positively impact someone else's life? How can I help them maybe get out of a career that they feel cornered in, and show them the avenue that I'm on and a lot of other people in this industry are, of another means to buy your time back, to prepare for retirement, to generate wealth, and to build, this massive amount of wealth that you otherwise thought was impossible. So I think now that I'm defining my own life at 30, I had my light bulb year at 32. I feel like I'm just starting to figure out how the world works.
Yeah, and that's what I like. You made a good point. Is you don't have all the answers yet, but you're still looking and you're building and you're doing your 10,000 hours to learn. You know, and then the stuff that you can't learn on your own, you're willing to pay a mentor to say, "Hey, help me run. I'm crawling right now. I want to get moving." So, what a lot of people will do as a mistake is they're not willing to. They're not willing to do the time, and they're not willing to pay the money. So then you're like, okay. Well, one of my friends would say, you can't have your hand out and your chest out. It's one or the other.
Oh, I
Either
like that.
have your hand out or you're proud and you have your chest out, but you can't do both.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, would you ever consider having your family as a partner in some of your ventures?
I think eventually, you know, when you're struggling as an entrepreneur, just starting out, you know, we talked about this earlier, like this known cost for an unknown payoff.
Right.
So you look at it two different ways. You know, if all the work that I'm doing eventually pays off and I become successful,
Right.
I win. If all the work I'm doing right now does not pay off and I'm not as successful as I want to be, but I grew, I win.
Okay.
So in order to invite other people into these ventures that I'm doing and this kind of outlook on life that I'm, you know, this non-traditional way of building wealth and retirement plan, I feel like before I invite other people in, I have to show that I know what I'm doing.
Okay.
So 18 months ago, I would have said, hey, look at me. I know what I'm doing, right? I'm Ian. I'm a genius. I'm investing in Bali. You know, I know everything. But 18 months later, I tell everybody right now, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
But I feel like there's power in not knowing what you're doing because it makes learning the only clear directive.
Yeah, and the fear, like fear can be a good thing to guide you to do what you need to do because you don't want to fail. You're afraid of failure, so you make sure you're prepared. You make sure you're on time. You make sure you do all those things to be successful. So I think that's awesome.
Exactly, and there's this patience. You know, Jarvis and I, this would be like our weekly calls. It's patience is without a doubt the biggest thing that I struggle with today. But you know, it's brick by brick. You know, it's about these base hits, not these huge home runs. You know, I was prepared to drop $350,000 on an investment that was in a foreign country, 20 hours away by plane, that was going to gross me $60,000 a year, and I thought that was the best, you know, home run that I could have ever hit.
Sure.
Look what happened.
Didn't work out like you expected.
You ask anybody who's ever built, you know, a real estate portfolio, a financial portfolio, it's a brick by brick, it's step by step, and you have to figure out what to do in the meantime. You know, that's patience. So just like that example of, you know, having a baby, right? It takes 9 months. You might want it to come a month later, but you need to wait 9 months. You can't rush that. So in the meantime, you can lay down the tracks, you can decorate the room, you can buy supplies, you can figure out what you're going to do when that baby's born. So I feel like now knowing what I need to do in between is helping me with patience, but it's a daily struggle, you know.
Sure. And the cool thing about the story is even though that happened, you didn't give up. You're like, all right, well, that didn't work out. Let's try something else. Let's try a different way to do this. So what other projects do you have going on that you're looking at doing?
It's great. So me and my girlfriend, we bought our first deal in January. It is a house hack. For those people who don't know what house hacking is, you essentially play the leverage game, right? So leverage is just defined as input versus output, right? So to see how much leverage you're using, you want to use the most minimal amount of input to get the most maximal amount of output. So for example, we were paying $2,400 a month rent to live on the beach, right? Nice. We are now paying significantly lower than that to not rent the asset, but to own the asset.
Nice.
It's not an Ocean Beach on the water. It's in El Cajon. But
it's okay.
In order to become successful in San Diego, this is what I need to do.
Right.
We are choosing to buy single-family homes to get our portfolio started. We rent by the bedroom to offset our mortgage. Okay. We just refinanced. We're increasing rents. Everything is going to plan, you know, nice. But the leverage, you know, I would have dropped $350K on a villa in Bali. I dropped $17,000 to buy a $900,000 asset in a rapidly appreciating market like San Diego.
Right.
So my goal for the next couple of years is to, like I said, patience, brick by brick. Home runs are for people with deep pockets. I just need base hits. So we're going to buy, we're gearing up to buy our second house right now. Very exciting. And the idea is to wait for some equity between loan pay down and appreciation to then borrow against that to deploy into these larger deals.
Okay.
So one of the deals I was offered recently was by a local real estate developer in San Diego, and these amazing value adds. So everyone's on the ADU game, the
Right.
ADU play, to people who don't understand leverage and say you can put 20% down on a property, you can borrow 100% of the construction costs. You build a couple units for 200 grand a piece, they reappraise for $600,000 a piece. So in 5 years from now, I could have $500,000 to borrow against just 2 homes, for example. Say I don't buy anymore, just 2 homes. And then I can deploy that into an investment opportunity that will give me a 2 to 3x multiple on my money. So that is the game plan, but it's like a hockey stick. You know, you have very, very flat, and then before you know it, it's just the curve just exponential.
With business, for sure, is slow, and all of a sudden everyone's like, hurry, we gotta go, we gotta get this signed, we have to do this, we gotta get this inspection. So you just have to, like you said, understand that I'm on the path, and when it's time to be ready to do this, I'm ready to go.
The
And
baby's cooking.
Yeah.
What am I doing in the meantime? What am I going to learn? So right now, I shifted my focus this year from earning to learning.
Okay.
So I haven't even been licensed a full year yet. You know, I've sold some houses. I thought that my exit from nursing to kind of recoup my nursing income was going to be from selling real estate.
Sure.
But now that I know, just like being a nurse anesthetist, what I thought I wanted to do 5 years ago, selling real estate is not what I want to do. I think you're going to get significantly richer in life owning anything versus selling anything.
Sure.
So I've shifted my focus from selling real estate to buying real estate.
Okay.
And you don't need money to do so.
Sure.
So you know Dre Evans,
Yep.
right? So he's built a portfolio using a lot of other people's money, right?
Correct.
You find the deal, one guy pays for it, 50-50 equity, right?
Yep.
So in order to have these opportunities, these very high leverage opportunities, you have to get the skill set. So it's learning the skill set, learning how to find deals, learning how to underwrite deals, learning financing options, and more or less just networking. Like how many people have you been introduced to just because you went to a beers and deals, you've shaken 50 hands in one night, and somewhere down the line that's opened up a door for you?
Yeah. I can't even count how many people I met at networking events, and that's why I do my own event now, because I feel like that's the best way to kind of really find out who your tribe is of people.
Love the tribe, yeah.
Yeah, I met Jarvis at a networking event. We became really close. Then he started his movement, see what he's done. I'm proud of that. Obviously, what Rich has done with Beers and Deals. Then we have our events. But what I try to do is anyone that's putting something together, because I know what it takes to do it, I try to go support it. Because that's what people need to see is like their support of their peers to keep them moving forward. And that's how you can have the place have so many good events and have quality people in the room.
Yeah, it just, I got a land listing a couple weeks ago just from this real estate attorney that I had met at Beers and Deals. And shout out to Sophie. I'm not going to say her last name, but cool chick, woman, professional woman. We're friends now, so we joke around. But anyway, it's just I just met her at an event. You go, you put yourself out there. These high leverage opportunities. The larger your network is, the more you leverage those relationships, right?
Absolutely.
So I could be looking at $10,000 paycheck if I sell this piece of land. So that's just one example of the things that you can do that are high leverage activities. So I still work with nurses, right? And we talked about how a career in nights just proves that you will die earlier,
sooner,
right?
yeah.
So why do you work night shift for $6 more an hour, right? It's like, okay, well, you just bought a Tesla you don't need. You work $6 an hour at work night shift, to help mitigate these costs. Low leverage activities, right? So what I want to do is help educate people on what's the highest leverage opportunities that you can do. So, house hacking, if you want to get into real estate investing, that's one of them. 2, leveraging your network and being introduced to different circles. And this might not even be a monetary gain like in the short term, but for you to get around people that are doing more to like elevate you to see what a reality could be, to shift your perspective on what I can actually accomplish as an entrepreneur is amazing. So those are all these benefits. And I feel like not a lot of people use these resources that are at their fingertips.
You're right. I think Harvard did a study that if you're just around people that make more money, you'll make more money. Just being around them, not going to the same school or nothing, just because you're seeing it, it's just something that will happen. And then I think if you're around people that are low producers, I think you'll produce like 38% less than you would just being around those people. So I think that's
It's crazy. Yeah. So, you're the combination of the 5 closest people in your network, and, to level up, you just need people doing more. So, it's funny now. So my broker, Mark Casada, Mark, you did a
Mark's
podcast with him.
man. Yeah, really cool guy.
Really cool guy. He's really tapped into a lot of the San Diego real estate investing space. He's really good friends with Rich. But he told me that, in a lot of the people that he met that made a positive impact in his life were from the fast lane car drive, or the car club, right?
Yeah.
So, just getting in the room with different people that are doing more will force you to do more. And it's tried and true. Like Denzel Washington says, he's like, if you hang around the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut.
That's true. That's true. So are you thinking of, once you get this mastery, to make a community to help the nurses, or?
Absolutely. So, it all comes down to just education. What you don't know, you don't know. I was talking to a fellow nurse, and she was like, me and my husband, we paid off our house in 15 years. We worked, overtime, did all this. It's like, hey, the principal, on your loan doesn't really, knock off until like, 10th, 12th year. It's like, that's also a tax write-off. You're trying to bend over backwards to pay down this debt that you don't need to, when that money that you paid, towards your mortgage could have been doing better in real estate, maybe the stocks, S&P 500, whatever. So to really teach people and educate people, that's what I want to do. So I want to reach out to other burnout healthcare workers that understand that while they had a lot of success and a lot of, positive feedback in this, this industry of nursing, maybe this isn't the lifelong goal. So I want to create a capital fund with other nurses, and more importantly, these physicians.
Nice.
So as I've mentioned, my dad, he's old. He made well over $500,000 his entire life, and he only has a net worth of about $3 million. Healthcare practitioners are very good at making money. They're terrible at growing money.
Right.
So now this new generation of doctors, they look back, they've given up their entire 20s, right? So they don't want to work until they're 70.
Right.
Why you sacrifice some of the best years of your life. So they understand these opportunities now, like real estate, that they can get into. So I would like to see myself in 5 years being able to collect a fund, raise capital to tackle insanely huge real estate opportunities. But now, brick by brick, patience. I need to build the following. How are you going to trust me with your money if I haven't even done it myself?
True.
So building the credibility and latching on to other people like Chris Luna, amazing, mentor resource. These people can help you get to where you're going. It's who, not how.
I like that. And I think, like I said, because you've actually done it, you're going to be able to really reach the people that, versus like, hey, I learned this online, and, you family in healthcare, you're in healthcare, the struggles, you'll be able to really reach that audience that other people can't. So I think it's going to be really successful. Yeah,
and it comes back to trust. Like we said with the podcast, these people listen to you for hours, but, being vulnerable, like Alex Ramosi says, the life hack about creating content, just be honest. No one else is doing it. You know what I mean? So when I was selling real estate in the very beginning of last year, my broker had told me not to post any nursing-related content. And his reasoning was to say that if people still think that you have another job other than real estate, they're going to assume that you're not good enough at real estate to make it your full-time opportunity. But I'm day one in real estate. You're going to be terrible at anything.
Yeah.
You've just started.
Yeah.
So I hid that I was still working as a nurse from, my social media, my following for a very long time. But now I'm being more open about it and saying, listen, it makes no sense for me to not take this travel opportunity in Los Angeles. I'm making money. I get health insurance. My girlfriend gets health insurance. This is going to help me get to where I need to be, or I want to be, even quicker. Mm-hmm. So I think just building that trust, and that takes years and years and years, and showing the credibility of the deals that I'm doing or have done. And, I have this thing on my wall. It says by September 16th, which is my birthday, 2029, I will have $3 million in my bank account, right?
Let's go.
So I took a picture of it and I time-stamped it, and I cannot wait until that date comes 4.5 years from now. And I can show a picture of my bank account, and that's when you just go viral. That's when it all explodes. So the only thing I can do right now is document my journey. And I feel like I'm excited to do it. I'd like to learn, and I want to be able to create a platform that other people can look at me as a complete stranger and be absolutely immediately able to relate.
I think you're onto something too, so one of my friends, Sean Duque, he's a realtor that I met at an event, but he's also a aerospace engineer. So super, super smart guy. He's like, anytime we talk about something, he like breaks it all down to the metrics and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And when we would go out to real estate things, he would never want to tell people that he's an engineer. And I'm like, why? And he goes, I don't know, man. Like, I'm here doing real estate. I was like, well, how many other realtors are here? And he's like, I don't know. I was like, probably half the rooms are realtors.
Yeah.
I was like, but I bet you not a lot of them are freaking aerospace engineers.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as he started to say, hey, I do real estate, I invest, but I'm an aerospace engineer, opportunities started coming from, because people would say, man, where'd you go to school? And the conversation was way different than saying, hey, I'm a realtor.
It makes you stand out.
Way more. So I think that you're right by that, because it also makes people understand that you have layers. Either, like you said, I'm just starting my real estate journey, but this is what I did before that. I didn't just grow up a realtor.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might have done that, or depend on but most people are normal people. So if this normal person can go and do all these great things in real estate, then that means I have a chance.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's so funny that we shelter our past, and then once we make it, we show it. But why not just be transparent the whole time?
Yeah.
And I feel
agree.
like it's just, honestly, it'll just all come back tenfold. And I'm very excited. So, I'm trying to be more vulnerable on, social media. I'm trying to show them the hustle. Like I said, tomorrow morning, I'm driving up to Los Angeles. I leave San Diego at 4:30. I start work at 7 a.m. I end at 7 p.m. And then I have to drive, an hour to North Hollywood to crash with my friends. I'm not rich. I'm not trying to pretend I am. I don't want to let everybody lead on to think that I have everything figured out, because I almost have nothing figured out.
Right.
I feel like when people say I have everything figured out, I mean, that's just arrogant. That means you make 100% of the shots that you shoot. But as anyone will tell you in real estate, what can go wrong will go wrong. And it's how you pivot that determines your level of success, So I think it's just the learning, the being honest, and just being fully transparent with your audience will make you way more money in the long run. You're playing the long game than any short-term lies, renting the Lamborghini, renting the private jet just to take pictures in. It's just, there's so much superficial bullshit out there.
Right.
So I feel like when people actually see that someone's being honest, they really latch on to that person.
No, that's why I started my podcast. I got tired of people saying, hey, give me $47, I'll make you a millionaire. And during COVID, you saw all the stuff, and you're just like, man, this is such a huge scam. And people, $47 isn't gonna kill them, but you get 100,000 people to give you $47. I mean, you're doing something.
You're onto something,
right? So
exactly.
and you scrolling and you see it, thing after thing. So all my friends that were entrepreneurs would talk about the stuff you're talking about. Oh man, we bought this house and we underestimated the market, and now we're gonna have to pay, the mortgage 2 months longer than we expected.
Mm-hmm.
The loan's gonna come due. Like, you start hearing all the, the glamour part of you buying this $1 million asset, and you're gonna make all this money. And my guy's like, man, we might lose 100,000 after we bought this. So then I was like, man, I'm gonna start interviewing my friends that are entrepreneurs, talk about what happened, the ups, the downs, and all the stuff, so that people realize, like, just because we're out here in sunny San Diego, it ain't always sunshine.
Ain't perfect. and that's why, I'm in one of Luna's masterminds, and, he made a point to be very honest about his failures. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not only some of the personal, decisions that he would have done differently in life now but it made him who he is today, but the financial ones. He tried to take down 20 units in Pacific Beach, and to get his offer accepted, he had a $500,000 earnest money deposit, right? That immediately just turned hard, right? So $500,000, poof. At that point, how do you take losing $500,000?
Right.
He didn't come from money. He had to build up brick by brick, like I keep saying. But you look at someone who's honest about that, and you're like, this is the mistake I made. It just now gives you a layer of authenticity that a lot of these people don't have. It's not all glitz and glam. So
no, not at all, And what do they say? You get punched in the face. Like, what are you gonna do? Like,
exactly.
How are you gonna react? Do you have any announcements or anything that you wanna tell the audience?
Not really. I just turned 32. This year is 30 was light bulb, 31 was planning, 32 is building. So got a lot of plans that I want to hit. We're about to buy our second house. We're going to house hack it out. I just refinanced, saved about $410 a month.
Let's go.
We're going to bleed maybe $300 for my first property using an FHA loan within 1 year, which is just unheard of in San Diego at a $900,000 price point.
Yeah.
So things are good. They're working out, continuing to learn. So no real announcements in another year from now. I definitely will. But in the meantime, it's, my time to hustle, my time to educate myself, and just continue reaching out to cool people like you and expanding our networks.
Now, I know we've been planning on doing this episode. If people want to work with you or partner with you, what's a way they could reach you?
Sure. Some of my friends who now see real estate as like an investment opportunity, and now they're like, hey, help me buy a house. Can I add ADUs? I come from the lens of just the investment, not necessarily the turnkey, So a lot of people, if, they're choosing to work with me, they're now reaching out. You can reach me on my phone, my email, ianpatrickduffy@gmail.com. But my Instagram handle is Scrubs2Estates. It's Scrubs with a letter, number 2 to Scrubs2Estates. So DM me on there. You can follow my content, but more or less just follow my journey. And if you have any questions, I'm an open book, and I want to give you the value that I was given from people that I had nothing to give them or offer them at the time.
Right. And then you come into Margaritas and Mingle. It's on the 24th.
Hell yeah, brother. I'll be there. I can't wait. The new location is amazing. I love being on the beach. It's such a different vibe.
Right.
So yeah, can't wait to see all the guys there and, chop it up.
No, I'm trying to think if there anything else we should cover.
Do you want to say anything about yourself?
Nah, man, they talk about me all the time. Yeah. No,
man, I think it's good. We hit on it. I think we rocked it, man. I think it's good.
Perfect.
Cool.
Well, in the words of Dr. Dre, just chill till the next episode and it's a wrap. Or actually, you know what? I want to tell you, I appreciate you coming on the show. I know you just came from Bali on a long trip and probably jet lagged and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And we were trying to do the scheduling and you got sick. So thank you for coming on the show. And then if there's anything I can do to help you or your business, or if there's connections I can do for you, just ask. I'm definitely an open book with that kind of stuff, and that's probably it, man. I want to
appreciate
say
having me on,
you.
man. Yeah, no,
thank you so much.
Loved it. Yeah, love talking to you, and I can't wait to chop it up. More events to get to know you. Like I said, we always talk, but we never really dive, into things. So yeah, man.
We can always chat, man, or go to lunch or whatever. Like
we're not leaving San Diego.
Yeah.
I'd rather go homeless before I move back home.
Man, my mom wants me to come back to Minnesota, and I'm just like,
Oh man, it's totally different. Yeah, man.
Freezing.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it's a wrap. Thank you, Leo. Appreciate you, brother.
Cool.